It's time to pull your claws out because we're about to review Deadpool and Wolverine on this brand new episode of the Epic Film Guys podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Justin, and I am joined once again by special guest, the god of podcasting himself. You know who he is. I don't even need to say his fucking name, but I will anyways. Well, actually, I'll let you introduce yourself, Mr. God of Podcasting.
LoySauce.
There it
All of that.
is.
Yeah.
There he is. We're joined here by the one and only LoySauce to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, which we had the amazing opportunity to see. As of this recording, we saw it last night, and we're dropping this, I'm going to put it in quotation marks, spoiler-free review for you guys today. Get this out as soon as we can to be stabbed right into your fucking eardrums. I can't say enough how excited I am to talk about this movie. And that is absolutely shocking to me, Brian, that I'm excited to talk about anything to do with Marvel.
And superheroes in general. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling superhero fatigue. I'm largely done with the MCU, I want to say, especially considering the output after Avengers Endgame for the most part. But Deadpool and Wolverine is aware of that. In fact, they make multiple mentions of it in the film. And I think Deadpool is kind of like, you know, it's kind of operating outside the usual MCU formula. So, you know, the opportunity to see it, I wasn't going to pass it up because, of course, I have enjoyed the previous Deadpool films, and it's pretty hard to resist seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, even though I think Logan was the perfect ending for that character. I really wanted for that to be the send-off for Jackman because I felt like any other further appearances would have cheapened the sacrifice his character makes in that movie. But, you know, the movie the movie definitely is aware of that too.
Yes.
You know, I don't think his inclusion in this makes Logan any less meaningful, especially after I watched the movie. I kept thinking there better be a good reason for them to bring him back, and it turns out that there is.
A very fun, entertaining, gore-soaked, bloody, action-packed, surprise-filled comic book movie that is, in essence, a giant middle finger, a big red-gloved middle finger from Deadpool himself to the MCU in its own way, to superhero movie fatigue with a deep-rooted nostalgia and everything we've come to love from the X-Men movies that Fox made for us. The good ones and the bad. And I think it was a great opportunity. And Marvel knew what they were doing when they came up with, I mean, this was an idea between Jackman and Reynolds. You know, I heard Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds talk about in an interview that they kind of had an idea where they wanted to go with the third Deadpool, but they really didn't. And Ryan had mentioned it to Jackman. Apparently he was just like driving along and it just clicked with him. Like, I want to do this again. And there's things that I haven't gotten to do as this character, a lot of things for the fans that I really want to do. And it made perfect sense for him. And also I think it was a challenge for him. You know, he's in his mid 50s now. Like, can I get back into that Wolverine shape again? It's been a number of years. And what would it be like for this awesome team up? I mean, anyone that has seen X-Men Origins Wolverine knows that no one wants for that to be the only time we see that version of Deadpool and that version of Wolverine together. We've always just dreamed of seeing the Merc with the mouth and Jackman's Wolverine on screen in the purest shape and form together. And so they nailed the idea. Marvel knows, they're very aware of the situation regarding their movies and their television shows, that there is a drop off, a large percentage. I remember the last time I was excited for a Marvel movie, and that was No Way Home. And the last Marvel movie I saw in theaters, I'm pretty sure, talking about Marvel Studios, MCU, was Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange sequel. And since then, I've been very open and authentic about the fact that I just don't care that much. It's not that I have a hatred towards them. There's plenty of other stuff to watch, and
I do
I
think
need
you should make time for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume
sure,
3.
sure. That's on my list. I really enjoyed the first one, and the second one it is what it is. Didn't dislike it or anything, but yes, absolutely. But this, ladies and gentlemen, this just seems like the team up we've all been waiting for. So I think the stars aligned for this to happen. And as of right now, Brian, it is looking like it's going to be the biggest opening weekend for an R-rated movie of all time.
Wow.
And
that
rightly
makes sense.
so. Rightly so, though. I mean, back to what I said, they know what they're doing here. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do in this review, I say spoiler free in quotation marks because we're going to talk about the movie. But in terms of surprises, cameos, or anything that would ruin the experience for you, we don't want you to have that happen to you by listening to the show. Also, I just tweeted this morning on the Epic Film Guys account that if you don't want this shit spoiled for you, don't look at anything. Stay off social media. I mean,
that's going to be one of the things that fuels the box office of this movie is people wanting to see it as soon as possible so they don't get spoiled. Because there are surprises in this movie that you are definitely not going to want to have spoiled for you. So I think everyone's going to be rushing to see it as soon as they can to avoid, because, you know, the final trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine spoiled, I think, what would have been one of the most impactful scenes in the film. And I'm going to say what it is because it's already been spoiled by Marvel themselves, but the return of X-23, Daphne Keane, from Logan. And it would have been such a great surprise if she had shown up in the movie, because she had given an interview very similar to Andrew Garfield leading up to No Way Home, where she basically said, I'll be watching this as a fan. And that's a very crafty way of getting around the fact that she didn't want people to know that she was in this. But unfortunately, I don't know why Marvel decided in their marketing materials to reveal that.
1 week
it's
out.
Not like they're desperate for people to, to get butts in seats or anything. So I don't really get it. But anyway, I think what they wanted to do was show that there was kind of a more emotional core to this movie than they were letting on initially. This is actually a very like emotional and feel good, movie. Despite all of the, sophomoric nonsense that goes on, there is a lot of heart to this movie. So yeah, unfortunately, there are going to be some things that we do talk about, but we're not going to spoil anything that would be a surprise to the audience. We don't want to do that.
This right now, there was a moment in this movie where I literally, you were sitting right next to me. I stood up in the theater. And I started applauding and cheering.
Yeah, I audibly
never expected that.
I audibly exclaimed, "Oh my God!" at several points in the movie, and I was worried going in because I just had a feeling it was going to be cameos a go, just like a never-ending look who it is fest. And the movie largely avoids that. There were a lot of characters that they could have very easily included. But I think there is the appropriate amount of cameos. There will be cameos that some people expect and cameos that some people definitely do not expect.
No one will ever never ever expect. That's the excitement of it. That's why, back to what I was saying before we go into this thing, into the nitty-gritty of it. If you don't want it spoiled, don't listen to anything. Don't look at anything. I'm actually surprised. I did a quick glance this morning and there were no screenshots.
Good.
There were no, I didn't see any spoilers, so that's great. But still, you don't want to hear this shit on the internet. Then you're going to go into it and you're not going to have the experience you were meant to have. So this movie, the premise, 6 years after the events of Deadpool 2, Wade Wilson is the retired as Deadpool. He's no longer the mercenary and lives a quiet life until the Time Variance Authority, an organization that exists outside of time and space, that monitors the timeline.
From Loki, the Disney Plus show, which I have not watched.
If you watch that, pulls him into a new mission at a very low point in his life. With his home universe facing an existential threat, Wilson reluctantly joins, and even more reluctantly pulls a Wolverine onto the mission with him that will change the history of the MCU. There it is.
And here's the thing I'm going to say right away, Justin. do you know was do you know what that mission was? Could you explain it to me? Because the movie tries to explain it, but I
Does
was
it?
very confused. Well, I don't know. I mean, I was very confused as to why Deadpool was pulled into this plot. Um, there's some quick exposition, but I was confused as to what the goal of the Time Variance Authority was uh, from the outset. Maybe I'm just dumb and missed crucial
No.
exposition.
I mean, it's entirely possible we both missed it, but I mean, those were moments where we weren't being enamored by anything on screen. They were moments of
Yeah,
just, exposition, dialogue driven, and I didn't not pay attention to the movie at all. So I think it just seems like it was a reason to get
an excuse.
an
Yeah,
excuse. Yeah, better put, to get him in this situation where we can get him together with Wolverine. Because how
right.
else are we going to get them together? I mean, we already know the events of Logan. If you haven't seen Logan, sorry, spoiler alert. Logan dies at the end of Logan, so he's
Oh my God.
he's dead at the end of that movie. So they have to find a way for him to basically time jump around another multiverse situation, which at this point we're very used to in the MCU.
Right. It's
And
getting very confusing.
very confusing, but at the same time, I'll say this: I'll be happy if this is the last time we see this utilized from here going forward with these movies. I don't care in the long run, because if it's entertaining, I enjoy it, it makes sense to what they're trying to do, then fine, do it. But I don't want to keep seeing this every other movie where they're like, hey, we should bring this character into this. Obviously now it's easier since Disney owns Fox, so they can really do whatever they want. But we also
Right.
know, the Fox era is kind of in the past, and this movie most definitely cements that into the ground. There's direct references to it. Anyone that has seen the trailer or seen set photos, you could see that there's a giant 20th Century Fox logo like in the background of their first fight scene between each other. So I mean, this is
Characters like Pyro,
yeah,
people from the old movies make appearances, and Disney has, the authority to do that, I guess, now because they own those characters. So yeah, the thing about this movie too is that I was thinking about Spider-Man: No Way Home a lot because I think the film gets off to a very bumpy start. You know, it took me a while to get on the movie's wavelength, I guess. It starts off very clunky, but once it finds its footing, once it gets into the fan service and the more emotional, uh, beating heart of the movie, that's when I started really digging it. Like that's when we start cooking with gas. Once we get like maybe a third of the way into the movie, maybe a little bit more.
I would say the moment that Deadpool finds the Wolverine that he's going to be using, because it's already been rumored that there's more than one Wolverine, so we can confirm. Not going to give details on each one of them, but there are a number, because he time jumps around, goes to different timelines, and you'll get to see a couple other Wolverines.
Yeah.
There's a really funny moment where they kind of pick on the fact it's a reference to Jackman not being like 5'2" as Wolverine. I thought that was a really fun one.
Sure.
You'll see two others, which as fans you'll see him in different comic book versions that will make you jump up for joy and say, hey, we may not ever see those versions of Wolverine ever in the movies, so it's awesome to see.
Yeah.
And you will also possibly see another version of Wolverine that I don't want to give details or anything like that.
Well, you
but
better not.
yeah, it's pretty awesome, pretty super, if I dare say so myself. But once he finds his Wolverine, once he finds his Logan that he's going to use for this, because basically he finds out that like his world, his timeline is going to be erased. And the whole premise of this movie is that he wants to make a difference. He's good at what he does, but he wants to be part of something that's meaningful. And the opening of the movie is him basically being shot down in his attempt to become part of the largest organization in the MCU that does that, and
which felt very forced to me.
okay, All right.
Look,
I'm not saying it wasn't.
I have great things to say about this movie, but I mean, it's not a perfect movie by any means.
No, I mean, I almost never say a movie is perfect. I would say there is plenty here that I felt had, there were some minor issues here and there with the movie, but that scene, I liked the scene. I'll say that I thought it was very funny, but my point is he doesn't feel like he's a hero. He feels like he can't do this on his own. So that entire premise is he knows of someone that has helped save the world before in Wolverine.
Right.
Obviously, we get a whole exposition dump about this and that, blah, blah, blah. Not going to get into detail there with that. So when he goes through this process to find his Wolverine, the minute he finds him, they have this confrontation. We see that this Logan is even darker and deeper in a bad place than any of the others we've seen before. He's absolutely like just an alcoholic, drunk, waste of space. And I loved this interpretation. I think, we've seen Jackman portray this character in many different lights before, but much like Logan, this might be right up there with my favorite interpretation of Wolverine. I don't know how you felt about that, because we've seen him in every movie. He kind of plays it. I think in the first 3 X-Men movies, he's kind of the same Days of Future Past as well. But then after that, it's kind of like the Wolverine, X-Men Origins. Like it's kind of slightly different in a way. I'm sure if you're picking up what I'm putting down there, but
sure. I mean, they definitely went out of their way to make Wolverine more, I don't know, I don't want to say more heroic, but there is something refreshing about having the kind of curmudgeonly get the fuck out of my face kind of Wolverine.
And we can hear him curse. We can hear him curse, and he curses a lot. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's cursed in the past, obviously Logan and stuff, but in this one, like, the not to cut you off, the dynamic between the two is just absolutely fucking gold. It's perfection.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, especially as a foil to Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, I mean, there are so many times in the movie where Wolverine says directly to Deadpool's face, like, "You're a fucking moron. Like, you're annoying as hell, and I don't want to have anything to do with you." So to have those characters start out kind of butting heads and having several awesome fight scenes between the two of them, watching their relationship develop over the course of the film, and each of them having their own distinct character arcs, and then having a joint character arc together, is really, I think, what makes the movie work at all. And having them side by side in the title, I mean, this really is a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. I was a little concerned that, like I said, like, don't bring the character back if you're just going to waste him with a cameo, or, having a storyline that is not meaningful, or playing second fiddle to Deadpool. It's none of that. Like, Wolverine is a co-star of the movie.
And I think that was from the get-go something that Jackman made very clear in his requirements for the return in the first place. He had script approval in hearing their interviews and stuff, because I did want to do a little deeper dive than I usually do before I saw the movie. It seemed very clear to me that, he really wanted this to be good. He put a lot of care and precision into what are we going to do to make this right and perfect for the fans, and to make a really good movie. You said earlier, to make it worth him coming back and doing it one more time.
Right.
And you can tell, I mean, that shows on screen with the dialogue between the two of them and the chemistry. It's everything we hoped for and more. I mean, I dare say this movie is probably, I felt like the funniest of the 3. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was laughing out loud almost the entire movie, and you know me, I almost never laugh at movies. I mean, it's very rare. For example, the way this movie opens, which, it's hard to talk about this without actually giving stuff away, but
the opening credits, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's so fucking funny, and it is a direct response to Logan, and pokes fun at it. But it's also, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's also letting you know right away that they have definitely not been neutered by Disney. they have complete free reign to be as filthy and as gory as they so please. And it's letting you know right away, like, this is a Deadpool movie, and
In its purest form, man. It's
yeah,
the exact opposite of an MCU movie. That's why probably I enjoyed it so much.
right off the bat. I mean, those opening credits really make a statement. The humor in this movie, and all the Deadpool movies, there is a little bit of, the humor is, it's just packed with, like, glib, boorish, smugly self-aware humor that sometimes doesn't hit. But there were multiple moments in this movie where I was pretty much doubled over with laughter. Um, and I credit that to Ryan Reynolds. I credit that to Sean Levy. And Sean Levy, he directed a movie with Ryan Reynolds previously called Free Guy, which I found highly, highly, highly annoying. So that was another worry going in. But my fears were assuaged. And like I said, it gives Marvel gave Ryan Reynolds the freedom to be the character, so to speak. Very few people seem to understand the character of Deadpool more thoroughly than Reynolds, which makes him a perfect choice to play the character, but it also makes him a perfect choice to write for the character. At least in some capacity, he did co-write the script with about 5 other people.
Oh,
um,
5. Wow.
yeah, all involved in the previous Deadpool films, or involved in comic books or comedy in some fashion. So it is very much in keeping with the character that it's completely taking the piss out of, pop culture iconography, comic book iconography, while also paying respect to it. I think ultimately this movie is a very touching love letter to the Fox era of Marvel.
Oh, absolutely. I felt the same way about that.
Your X-Men and your Fantastic Four and your Daredevil. I mean, these are movies that, say what you want about them, but they were formative in, in shaping the comic book movie as we know it
Listen, Brian,
today.
I was there opening night for every single one of those fucking movies, all of them. I'll never forget leaving The Last Stand feeling like I had my guts ripped out of my chest. Like, oh my God, that's really after X2, that's what you're giving me. Felt the same way after X-Men Origins Wolverine. I still kept going back though. And I think this movie does a great job of saying, like, listen, we know there were a lot of bumps in the road to get here. We're going to make it worth your while. And I think they absolutely did. Brian, the one thing a lot of fans have been excited about this entire time, as soon as we saw the first official photo of Deadpool and Wolverine together, was that we're finally getting to see Jackman's Wolverine in his classic yellow and blue costume. I mean, goddamn. I never hated the leather suits, the black leather suits. We all know the Matrix was the reason for those suits, and that was just, there was the joke in the first X-Men, what did you expect? Yellow spandex. And now in this movie, it's the exact opposite to that. There are lines of dialogue referencing it. And one thing that it's not a spoiler, so I can let fans out there know not to be worried. He wears the Thing the entire fucking movie. You meet him, he's wearing street clothes. Once those come off, he's wearing the classic yellow suit the entire movie. So I know a lot of fans will be absolutely pleased about that. And again, another thing that I need to bring up, because, I remember, I'll never forget that, the Wolverine had that extra scene that showed him opening the briefcase. It had the gloves for, the claws to go through, and it had the mask in there. And it always made me wonder, are we finally going to ever, in a sequel, see him wear that? Because to me, growing up, Wolverine with that mask on was just as integral to that character as Batman wearing his cowl. I mean, if you watch the animated series or you read the comics, he took that shit off when he got back to Xavier's school for the Gifted. I mean, he was not just hanging around with the mask on all the time, but it's part of the character. So, we've seen obviously in production art, promotional stills and action figures that he wears the helmet, the cowl, if you will, and people have been clamoring to see him in an official photo. And I'll just say this, it is worth the wait for when you
Mm.
finally see him wearing this. And it's not just one scene like some fans are expecting. Oh, he'll have it on for 2 minutes and that'll be it. No, I mean, I can say right now, get excited because it's not that. It's more than that. And when you get it, it's everything you hoped for. I was like literally almost, I would say I was almost in tears. And this is funny because that article came out recently. LoySauce, I'm not sure if you saw it. I think it was from the Hollywood Reporter, where people from the set talked about the first screen test they did with him in that costume and how grown men were actually tearing up. And a lot of people were making fun of that. And I was like,
Well,
bro, go fuck yourself. How special is this to so many of us that grew up with this character? It's like part of our childhood. It's
sure.
okay to, you know, it's like a huge PSA here, but like, ladies and gentlemen, it's okay. Dudes cry. It's okay to be emotional. It's actually a good trait to have. And to be emotional about something you have such a deep passion for is a great fucking thing. And fuck off to anyone that says anything else about that. Sure, some of us are children, and that's our life. And fine, cool. Pick on that all you want, but it is a way of life for a lot of us. And I for one, think that's a great moment to have. Like it's joy. It's pure joy, and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, nostalgia is a very close to home emotion for a lot of people, and this movie certainly plays on that. There is a part of me that would have liked to have seen Jackman in Wolverine garb, the complete Wolverine garb, before now. But after seeing this, you're almost glad they waited. You know what I mean?
Well, we talked about this last night after the movie. I said, how many movies has he been Wolverine? And we counted them and we kind of lost count because I was like, oh my God.
All of them.
All of them pretty much. And think about how many times fans went to see him in theaters with the hope that maybe he'll wear it in this one.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And finally you get it. And it had to take it being part of Marvel, which again,
and
Deadpool. But think about that logically. I mean, we've always talked about this in all of our Marvel reviews, that their costumes have always been pretty damn accurate to the source material and pretty faithful, and a great love letter to what came before in the comics and the animated series of whatever the property is they're portraying. So it had to take until it got to Marvel. So I guess thank you, Sean Levy. Thank you, Ryan Reynolds. Thank you, Kevin Feige. And yeah, thank you, Jackman, for finally deciding to put it on. And his comments about putting that costume on, where he said something along the lines like, I can't believe it took so long to get here. I can't believe this is how it feels wearing this. As if like, if he could go back in time. Obviously it wasn't a creative choice on his part. He almost didn't get the role of Wolverine for Bryan Singer's X-Men. So
he was the second choice.
Wasn't Russell Crowe the first choice? Or Russell Crowe was
it was Dougray Scott.
That's right. But Russell Crowe was, I think, offered the part and he immediately turned it down or something along those lines. I know he was in the talks or something like that, but
he would have made a good Wolverine.
Sure, but he wouldn't still be doing it now. Have you seen the guy?
Well,
never
sure.
Mind.
Maybe his career would have, been a little bit different. But
that's the dedication that Jackman puts into this, though. I mean, I watched his training videos leading up to this. He goes full fucking force, deadlifts, squats, bench press, his diet plan. Like, he cares so much about this character and how it's portrayed. And like I said, the more I think about it, like this and Logan, absolutely my favorite interpretations. I mean, he's just so fun in this one, and we finally get to see the version of Wolverine I think we've all been waiting for in a weird way.
Totally. And I mean, of course, Logan gave us the kind of the bone crunching violence that we really haven't seen in any of the. I mean, we've seen Wolverine use his claws in all of the movies, but in a PG-13 manner,
like at the like in the opening of X2 with the Xavier school being all the military coming in and trying to attack, and that was the first glimpse of like, whoa, this is what this could be like. But this movie is no holds barred. I mean, he's wearing gloves, but the gloves are off, the claws are out, and blood is everywhere. The first fight between the two of them was extremely enjoyable. They're out in this big desert space. They shot this practically. Wonderfully shot action, very dynamic. It's not boring at all whatsoever. It keeps your attention. Very energetic action. I thought I was really taken back by how good the fight scene was. We don't get just one of them though between the two of them. I mean, with this dynamic between these two characters, LoySauce, they're gonna butt heads a lot in the movie, and it's so funny to watch him constantly get on Wolverine's nerves like every fucking moment.
Right. Yeah, no, the fight scenes are great. I I'm just gonna say it.
Say it,
Another complaint about the
say it.
movie that I had. I mean, the Deadpool movies have never looked amazing. This probably looks the best out of all of them, just due to the size of the budget being larger. But there are some kind of ugly shots and like scenery in this film. You can definitely tell where green screen's been implemented. You can definitely tell where CGI de-aging has been implemented.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Um, I don't know if this is a Marvel problem. Well, it definitely is a Marvel problem, but I don't know if it specifically related to this film or if it's the cinematographer they used for the Deadpool films or what have you. But it's not the best looking film. It could have been. It could have looked a little bit better based on, uh, the talent involved and the money involved. And I think the look of Marvel films has been a huge detraction for me for a long time because, especially once we start getting into like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, those are like digital eyesores. Like those are ugly, ugly, ugly movies. And this isn't quite on that level, but there are
No,
multiple times where I kind of recoiled because things didn't look quite right on screen.
that you're not wrong. I mean, I kind of expect that. That's something
Sure.
that's I'm not going back in opening this wound again, but when the Flash came out last year, I was a big supporter of it, still love it, and the whole topic was constantly about the effects. But that movie was bright and vibrant and colorful and had a look to it that I felt was at least somewhat cinematic. And I feel like using that word cinematic involving comic book movies, it doesn't go hand in hand unless you get something like the Batman or something that really is shot with that prestige to look and feel like cinema.
Right.
That's not to say that I didn't think the movie looked bad, but I'm just saying that I expect those kinds of issues. That's unfortunate that I do, but in retrospect, it didn't hurt my experience with the movie at all whatsoever. It's just part of what's come to be with this genre. But there are some practical locations. They did try to do as much as they possibly could. I feel like we have to get to our mean big bad. I mean, I guess
Oh,
you could consider we've got a number of villains basically. I
yes.
mean, one of them,
Sorta.
which I mean, sort of. I mean, I guess, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, this is something that has been an ongoing issue with Marvel since the beginning of their cinematic universe, which is they've had a villain problem. For every great to good villain that they give us a piss poor, underwritten, weak villain. This kind of falls in the middle for me.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, everything that the movie does is to push forward the Deadpool and Wolverine stuff, which I get it that you have to get them together somehow. So I kind of, I don't apologize for it, but I kind of just let it by the wayside and go, okay, fine. That's what you're going to do. It's not perfect, but fine. But I got to say, I really did enjoy some of the stuff we did get with one of our main villains. And I know we talked about this a little bit last night, but I feel like Cassandra Nova, played by Emma Corrin, really solid stuff, dude. I think.
Yeah, I think they do a fantastic job in portraying the character, and the character's powers are very dangerous and scary. Because she can practically do anything she wants, really. I mean, manipulate people, get into their heads. I mean, she's Professor Xavier's twin sister, I guess, in the comics, and she's like Professor Xavier in that she has all of these, telepathic abilities, but she's also way more physical than Professor X ever is. So there's definitely a fear factor with her character, or with their character. I don't think that, and the performance is very good. Emma Corrin does a good job with the character. I do think that the motivation is a little bit weak. It kind of reminded me of Doctor Doom from the 2015 Fantastic
Oh
Four
my
film,
God. No.
where it's like you've
No.
left me in this void, and now I'm mad about it, so I'm going to kill
And now
everyone and
I'm going
everything.
to hurt you bad.
Right. It just kind of seemed a little bit thin.
Sure. Yes. I think Emma's performance makes up for a lot of that and does portray a much powerful version of what we've seen from Professor X. And also, they can walk and move around and do physical stuff, much like you said. So that makes them a formidable foe to anyone and really does strike fear into anyone that tries to attempt anything to Cassandra Nova. I really thought it was interesting that Corin said they took inspiration from Christoph Waltz's character from Inglourious Bastards, and that Reynolds highlighted that they wanted to have some humanization or motivation to the character, and they compared Nova's mischief and danger and unpredictability to Gene Wilder in Willy Wonka. I was like, okay, but I see some of that.
Sure.
There's no whimsy there to be had, but I mean,
a little bit. I mean,
maybe a tiny bit.
There's kind of like a playfulness to their performance.
Sure, but I wouldn't. She's not cracking smiles and grinning ear to ear like Wilder in a devious way. She is. I would say the character is a little bit more classic meanie.
Yeah.
But the other villain, Mr. Paradox, a terrible fucking name. Again, I didn't watch Loki, so I don't know. Is this character in Loki? Do you know if this character is in Loki?
I have not watched Loki, so I don't know.
Okay.
Apparently it's good, and people say I should watch it.
Sure. But I've heard lots and lots of great things. But this character just seems like they're overseeing this project to speed up the death of Earth.
Or at least a particular timeline. Yeah. I don't know why, though. I mean, again, we must have missed a crucial bit of exposition. Well, but I don't understand this character. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, other than he's evil, I guess.
He's using this Time Ripper, this machine which can mercy kill timelines. Apparently, he's attempting to prove to himself that this is going to make him the leader of the TVA, which it's another thin plot where, I just want power, which again, I mean,
okay. Yeah. In terms of villain motivation, I guess
it's literally, the weakest possible motivation you could have. But again, if we're talking about the villain problem being in a Marvel movie, like
they're not the worst.
Let's go back 10 years and talk about literally we're being light compared to how we used to be with Marvel villains. It didn't bother me to the extent where I walked out like, fuck, that ruined it for me. I just said it's fine for what it is.
They're leagues beyond like Ronan the Accuser and the dark elf from Thor: The Dark World.
Am I excusing it, or is it a case of me just being numb to this with the MCU? Take it as you will, but I think there's so much more good here than anything bad. We're not going to mention the amazing, the spectacular, the absolutely mind-boggling cameos that we get in this movie. We're not going to spoil them, like we said earlier, but we have to mention that they're probably not what people are going to expect. I know people they've read leaks, they've seen stuff on the cast list. I actually just looked at the IMDb as we were recording and saw someone added one of them on there, which I don't know if that was on. I don't know if that was on there before or not, or if that, because you can just update that shit whenever you want. But there are a few, one in particular for me that I just never expected that we would ever possibly see again out of left field.
Right.
And it is extremely satisfying. I just was so taken back by how amazing it was and how well they did with it. And just seeing some of these other characters interact with Deadpool and Wolverine on screen was just pure. And I mean, It's magic, man. It's just magic.
It definitely is fan service, but they call it fan service for a reason. I mean, it's to get the audience excited. It's to give the audience things that they know that the audience wants, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It did not feel cynical to me, like, oh, we're trotting out this character because that'll get the audience to clap. I think there was a genuine concerted effort to, like, first of all, surprise the audience, and also satisfy them, and bring back certain things, or at least bring things to the screen that the audience hasn't seen before or didn't think they would see again. And
or ever.
Exactly. And so, I think that goes, like I said, I think that goes right along with the Deadpool character, because you can kind of get away with more, I guess.
And there are moments of dialogue regarding these characters' inclusion into the movie that are hilarious.
Yeah,
like he's basically just being an
Their
audience
inclusion
surrogate.
Is a joke in and of itself.
Yes,
practically. Yeah.
So he's saying out loud in the movie what a lot of people are thinking, but we've experienced these kinds of things in early screenings before, like No Way Home. The reaction was huge. When I was at CinemaCon and saw Michael Keaton's return as Batman, that's still the loudest pop I've ever heard in a movie theater, where people just were on their feet. And here again, the audience last night, every single one of these moments, none of them landed flat. Every one of them was huge, and you just felt the energy in the audience. And I keep going back to this. I can't believe I stood up and started applauding during a Marvel movie, but it happened, ladies and gentlemen. It's real life. I'm not making this shit up. Disney's not paying me to say this.
Well, again, it reminded me a lot of No Way Home, in which you kind of have to sit through kind of a rough start, and then once they start, getting into it a little bit more and opening the universe up a little bit, that's when it gets really exciting. And that's when, again, a lot of the heart and emotion comes through. And I think the movie is ultimately satisfying. It's ultimately like it's a buddy picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it felt like a road movie. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is a road movie. It literally is planes, trains, and automobiles, Tommy Boy.
Yeah.
But with Deadpool and Wolverine. I love that element because you think back to those classic movies, they don't get really made anymore, but it fits perfectly for those two characters to be together, and they're constantly butting heads. The dynamic between the two of them, again, is just absolute perfection and hilarious. I mean, there's nothing more enjoyable. And going back to the moments of emotion in the movie, they're there and they're impactful and they mean a lot. And I think by the end of the movie, you're on a roller coaster ride, and then at the end, when the train pulls back onto the track and you're ready to leave, you still feel something from it. And it's not just excitement and a thrill, but you're feeling something for both of these characters.
And dick jokes.
Well, of course, dick jokes.
Well, there's plenty of them, but I'm just saying the movie has a lot more, on its mind than phallic humor.
Well, it's got something for everyone.
Yes, that's true. The only thing it doesn't have is well, I guess you could say it has a love story, because there is a bromance between Deadpool and Wolverine.
There is a bromance.
I don't know. I mean, the original film had a really sweet romantic plot line to it. It was, in many ways, it was a love story first and foremost, a romantic comedy of sorts. Marina Baccarin's character in this completely swept aside. I don't know really what they were thinking. I guess, like, there's a lot packed into this two-hour movie, and there maybe wasn't enough time to develop a storyline for her. But I just felt, especially after they went to the trouble of bringing her back in Deadpool 2, like, she may as well just be dead, because she's in this movie for approximately a scene and a half. Same with all the other characters, Dopinder, Blind Owl, like all the characters we've come to know from the other two movies. I mean, they're really only in the movie because they kick off the plot, and then they're kind of forgotten about. But again, the movie's called Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. I mean, you see them more than just the beginning, but we won't go into that any deeper. But yeah, I know what you mean. But at the same time, what are fans going to see? What's on the fucking marquee?
Right.
LoySauce, Deadpool and Wolverine. And that's what we get with this movie. One last thing to mention before we give final thoughts and trash it or treasure it. There is an amazing, and I will repeat this again, an amazing scene at the end of this movie that is likely the most gory and bloody and violent scene of any one of these movies. They've all been super violent. They've all been, totally off the wall in terms of blood, guts, and gore. But this ending,
is the funniest film in the series and also the most violent.
Yeah.
So this movie gives you everything in spades that
thank
you
you, Marvel.
want.
Thank you, Disney, for not fucking ruining this. Seriously. But this scene at the end just had me grinning from ear to ear. And the movie ends on a super high note. And I absolutely, and yes, I'm not going to say what it is. There is a post-credit scene. So
yeah, stay in your seats.
Stay in your seats for that.
You know the drill at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't have one, I mean, that I was thinking like this would be the most Deadpool thing ever to not have one or have something or have just like fuck off pop up on the screen. I half expected that.
Sure.
But a wonderful tribute to the Fox Marvel movies at the end as well, which stay and enjoy that too. But here it is, Brian. I think we're down to it. Your final thoughts, and are you going to trash or treasure Deadpool and Wolverine?
Well, like I said, I kind of have hopped off the Marvel train. I think I've consumed all the Marvel content I possibly can, at least at this point in time. I will say that I had a morbid curiosity for this film just because of its potential. And I think its potential was largely met. I think this is the swift kick in the butt that Marvel has desperately needed. It's a really refreshing break from the typical formula. And I think what is most refreshing about it is that it's an outlier. I don't think this is the status quo. This movie is extremely meta, extremely R-rated, and that is up until now, it has not been a factor in the Marvel universe. I do wonder what its R rating might mean for the Marvel movies going forward. Will they learn that R-rated movies have a place in the cinematic universe? For example, like if they make Blade, if they ever get around to finally making it, will that be a PG-13 movie or will it be R-rated? I mean, I think what this movie proves is that there can be, graphic violence and swearing in a Marvel movie, and no one gets hurt. It's okay. As long as you don't take small children to these movies.
You know damn well at Alamo Drafthouse this weekend, you're going to see plenty of kids going in to see this. There's no way. Parents, dads are going to be like, yeah, I want to see this shit. I'm taking you, Johnny Jr. You're going to see this shit.
I mean, I'm not telling people how to parent their kids, but I wouldn't recommend it. This is definitely not a movie that small children should be watching.
I say 10 and up. Fine.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I do think this is as good as a movie titled Deadpool Wolverine could have been, even if I think there are some misgivings I have with the visual look of the film, with some missed opportunities here and there, with again just how clumsily the movie starts. I am pleased to say that it is a triumphant finish. So I'm going to overall treasure Deadpool and Wolverine. What about you, Justin?
Wonderfully said. Oh, absolutely. You already know where I'm going with this one, and it is no surprise, nowhere near the surprise some of those cameos are going to be for you, ladies and gentlemen. When you watch this movie in theaters, it's going to blow your fucking minds, I promise. Much like you said, I had some villain problems. I think I have villain problems in almost every Marvel movie. I mean, I can count on like probably one hand how many times I didn't have a villain problem. But once again, I feel like I've become numb or just allowed that to be part of the process and enjoying these movies. And, I don't remember the score being very impactful. There's something I can critique. I don't really remember any music in the movie at all, except for the
There's a
needle
lot
drop.
of needle drops.
Well, the needle drop in the opening, which is probably one of the greatest needle drops of all time in a movie, fucking glorious. But the movie gave me everything in terms of the Deadpool and Wolverine stuff that I had hoped for. It was even more than that. I really do believe that they knocked it out of the park with that dynamic. Bringing Jackman back was exactly what the MCU needed. And much like I said in my little blurb this morning, it is a shot of pure adrenaline to the heart of the MCU. I think it needs it. A lot of people have dropped off. A lot of people just don't care anymore. They need a reason to be excited again. This is the perfect reason. Go see this movie in theaters this weekend. We know you already are, but anyways, that's our recommendation. I treasure Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's it for this. Again, in quotations, non-spoiler review. Hopefully we didn't say anything that ruined anything for you. I don't believe that we did. I think the important aspects of these movies, this movie rather, is going to be what you see when you finally sit down in theaters. So that's it. If this is your first time listening, thanks for checking out Epic Film, guys. If you're a long-term listener, thanks again for listening. We love you so much. We are available on every single podcast platform and on social media at Epic Film Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a fan group connected to our Facebook. It's called the Official Fan Group. If you want to come in and chat, find out about what's coming up on the show and other fun stuff like that, come on and become a member of that group. And we look forward to reviewing more and more awesome content the rest of the summer. We have Trap coming up from M. Night Shyamalan. Ooh, I know you're excited for that one, LoySauce.
We have seeing it Thursday.
We have Cuckoo, and of course, mine and Jeremy's most anticipated of this summer is Alien Romulus, which is just a few weeks away. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know what you think of the movie when you see it on the comments to this episode. But until next time, I am Justin.
And I'm LoySauce.
And thanks again for joining me, God of Podcasting, for another takedown of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We know it's not your favorite thing in the world, but you were kind to it and you seemed to have fun. So
I did. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we'll see you at the movies.